You know that person who drinks their coffee from the exact same mug every morning, walks the same route to work, and feels genuinely uncomfortable when their favorite parking spot is taken? You might think they're just uptight, maybe even boring. But what scientists discovered about their brain will make you rethink everything. Because they might actually be onto something that could change your entire life. And there's a dark side to this that even they don't see coming. Here's the truth nobody wants to admit. We've been told our whole lives that spontaneity is sexy, that flexibility is freedom, that routine is the enemy of creativity. But what if that's backwards? What if the people who seem obsessed with their schedules aren't missing out on life? They're actually experiencing it more deeply than the rest of us. And before you click away thinking this is just another productivity hack, wait. Because what I'm about to show you affects you right now, whether you live by a schedule or not. Let me paint you a picture. It's Tuesday morning. Your coworker Sarah has already been to the gym, made her overnight oats, and she's sitting at her desk at exactly 8:45 like she does every single day. Meanwhile, you rolled out of bed 20 minutes ago, grabbed whatever was closest, and you're still deciding if you even want breakfast. You look at Sarah and think, God, that must be exhausting. All that structure, all that rigidity. But here's what's wild. Sarah's brain is actually calmer than yours right now. Like measurably scientifically calmer. Psychologists discovered something fascinating about people like Sarah. They score incredibly high on something called conscientiousness, one of the big 5 personality traits. And conscientious people aren't just organized because they read a self-help book. Their brains are literally wired to crave predictability. When things go according to plan, when the morning unfolds exactly as expected, their brain releases dopamine. The same chemical you get from chocolate or Instagram likes. They're getting a neurological reward from routine itself. They're not forcing it. They're feeding a natural craving. Now here's where it gets interesting. Scientists at Duke University found something kind of unsettling. About 45% of everything we do each day isn't actually a conscious decision. It's just habit. We're all running on autopilot way more than we realize. But people who love routine, they push that number even higher, sometimes up to 70 or 80% of their day is habitual. Which sounds horrifying at first, right? Like they're robots. But think about what that actually means. They've automated the meaningless stuff. What to eat, when to exercise, what order to do their morning tasks. All the tiny decisions that drain everyone else are just handled on autopilot, which frees up their actual mental energy for things that matter. You know that feeling at the end of the day when you're just exhausted and you haven't even done anything hard? That's decision fatigue. Every choice you make, even tiny ones, depletes your willpower like a battery. Should I have coffee or tea? Should I respond to this email now or later? It adds up. But routine people sidestep that entire problem. They decided once. Now they just execute. Barack Obama wore basically the same suit every day as president. Not because he lacked style, because he had more important decisions to make. Steve Jobs, black turtleneck. Mark Zuckerberg, gray t-shirt collection. These aren't fashion statements. They're cognitive strategies. But let's get real for a second. When you see someone living like this, there's a part of you that wonders, are they actually happy? Like genuinely? Or are they just controlling freaks trying to manage their anxiety? And honestly, that's a fair question. Because from the outside, it can look like fear. Like they're building walls of routine to keep uncertainty away. And sometimes, yeah, that's part of it. A lot of routine lovers have higher anxiety when they're young. The world feels chaotic, so they create order wherever they can. It's a coping mechanism. But here's the twist. Researchers found that people who maintain consistent routines actually have lower anxiety levels as adults. Like significantly lower. The routine that started as a defense mechanism becomes a genuine source of calm. Their nervous system learns to trust the structure. They're not white-knuckling their way through a rigid schedule. They're genuinely more relaxed because their brain isn't constantly scanning for what's next, what could go wrong, what they forgot. Everything is handled. Everything is anticipated. And that predictability, for them, it's not a prison. It's freedom. Now here's the part that completely flipped my understanding of this. You'd think if someone lives such a structured life, they'd be numb to novelty, right? Like everything would blur together into one monotonous loop. But researchers at the University of Toronto discovered the exact opposite. When your baseline is structured and predictable, spontaneous moments hit completely different. Your brain notices them more, savors them more. Imagine eating plain rice for every meal, and then someone hands you a piece of chocolate. That chocolate is going to taste incredible. But if you're eating different random foods all day, that same chocolate is just... Okay, another thing. Routine people experience spontaneity with more intensity because it contrasts against their structured baseline. That unplanned coffee date, that surprise invitation, it's not just a nice moment. For them, it's genuinely euphoric. Their brain lights up because it wasn't expected. The dopamine hit is massive. So they're not missing out on life's pleasures. They're actually experiencing them more vividly than people who chase novelty constantly. Which is kind of beautiful when you think about it. But, and this is important, there's a trap here that nobody talks about. And it's subtle. When you live the same routine for months or years, your brain gets really, really good at it. Which sounds like a good thing. And it is. Until it isn't. Because your brain is incredibly efficient. It creates these neural pathways like highways for behaviors you repeat. The more you do something, the stronger that pathway becomes. But here's the cost. Your brain also prunes away pathways you don't use. It's like, why waste energy maintaining roads nobody drives on? So over time, routine people become incredibly skilled at their specific routine. They can execute it flawlessly, almost unconsciously. But anything outside that routine starts to feel harder, more uncomfortable, even threatening. Their comfort zone doesn't just stay the same size. It actually shrinks. You become a master of your little world, but increasingly anxious about anything beyond it. The same trait that made you productive and calm now makes you rigid, resistant to change even when change might be good for you. And this is where people who love routine need to be honest with themselves. Are you using structure to optimize your life? Or are you using it to avoid uncertainty? Because there's a difference. One is strategic. The other is hiding. And the scary part is, it's easy to convince yourself it's the first one when it's actually the second. You tell yourself you're being disciplined, but really you're just scared. Scared of the unknown. Scared of losing control. Scared of what happens when the routine breaks. Clinical psychologists will tell you that routine-seeking behavior exists on a spectrum. On one end, it's adaptive and healthy. It reduces stress, increases productivity, creates stability. On the other end, it becomes compulsive and limiting. You're no longer serving the routine. The routine is serving itself. And the wildest part? You can slide from one end to the other without even noticing. What started as a helpful morning routine becomes something you can't function without. Miss one element and your whole day feels ruined. That's when you know it's crossed a line. But here's what I want you to understand. If you're someone who thrives on routine, who color codes their calendar, who meal preps every Sunday, who feels genuine satisfaction from checking off a to-do list, you're not broken. You're not neurotic. You're not boring. Your brain just processes the world differently. And there's real power in that. You're harnessing the same psychological principles that elite athletes, CEOs, and artists use to perform at the highest levels. Consistency compounds. Routine removes friction. Structure creates space for flow. The goal isn't to become spontaneous if that's not who you are. The goal is to stay aware, to check in with yourself, to ask, is this routine still serving me, or am I serving it? Am I using structure to build the life I want, or to avoid the life I'm scared of? Because the answer to that question changes everything. And if you're on the opposite end, if you're someone who resists routine, who prides yourself on flexibility, who cringes at the idea of doing the same thing every day, that's okay too. But maybe, just maybe, there's a middle ground you haven't considered. You don't need to become a routine robot, but you could benefit from a little more structure than you think. Not to cage yourself in, but to free yourself up. Because here's the final truth. Routine isn't the opposite of freedom. Control isn't the opposite of spontaneity. They're tools. And like any tool, they can be used wisely or poorly. The people who actually thrive, They build routines that support their goals, but they stay flexible enough to break them when it matters. They create structure without becoming enslaved to it. So whether you've been judging routine lovers this whole time, or you've been defending your schedule like it's under attack, take a breath. You're both right, and you're both missing something. The real question isn't whether routine is good or bad. It's whether your relationship with routine, whatever that looks like, is helping you become who you want to be. If this made you see routine differently, if it made you question your own patterns even a little bit, subscribe, because that's what we do here. We take the psychology behind human behavior and break it down in ways that actually make sense. No jargón, no judgment, just honest conversations about why we do what we do. I'll see you in the next one.